In the heart of a forgotten town, nestled among overgrown weeds and crumbling brick, stood an eerie old house at the end of Maple Street. The townsfolk rarely spoke of it, their whispers tinged with fear. Rumors had it that anyone who dared enter never returned, their fates sealed by the malevolent presence that lingered within. One fateful autumn evening, a group of friends, Mark, Emily, Jake, and Sarah, decided to test their courage. The air was thick with anticipation and dread as they approached the house, their flashlights flickering like fireflies in the gathering darkness. Laughter echoed nervously among them, masking the unease that settled deep in their stomachs. "I bet we'll find some old furniture, or maybe a creepy doll," Jake said, trying to lighten the mood. "Or maybe something much worse," Emily replied, glancing nervously at the house's shadowy silhouette. As they stepped inside, the door creaked ominously, almost as if protesting their intrusion. The air was stale, carrying the scent of mold and decay. They switched on their flashlights, revealing peeling wallpaper and dust-covered furniture that seemed to loom in the corners like forgotten memories. "Let's split up," Mark suggested, emboldened by bravado. "We'll cover more ground." Reluctantly, the group agreed. Emily and Jake took the upstairs, while Mark and Sarah remained on the ground floor. As they wandered through the dimly lit rooms, the atmosphere grew heavier, the silence oppressive. Mark and Sarah explored the living room, where an ancient fireplace sat dark and cold. "Do you feel that?" Sarah whispered, shivering despite the warm air. Mark nodded, a knot tightening in his stomach. "Yeah, it's like someone's watching us." Meanwhile, upstairs, Emily and Jake found themselves in a narrow hallway lined with closed doors. Each door was marked by a layer of dust, as if it had not been opened in decades. They exchanged nervous glances before Emily reached for the first doorknob. With a deep breath, she turned the handle. The door creaked open, revealing a dark room filled with cobwebs and shadows. In the center stood a large mirror, its surface cracked and dull. As they approached, a chill ran down Emily's spine. "Look at that," Jake said, pointing to a figure reflected in the mirror. It was fleeting, just a shadow, but it sent a shiver through them. "Did you see that?" "Yeah." "Let's get out of here," Emily urged, her heart racing. Downstairs, Mark and Sarah continued to explore, but a sense of dread enveloped them. As they moved deeper into the house, they stumbled upon a door at the end of a long hallway. Unlike the others, this one was slightly ajar. "Should we?" Mark hesitated. "Let's just take a quick look," Sarah urged, pushing the door open. It revealed a small, dimly lit room cluttered with old furniture, and at the center, a dusty, ornate chest. "What do you think is inside?" Mark asked, curiosity piqued. "I don't know, but it could be valuable," Sarah said, approaching the chest. She lifted the lid, and a sudden rush of cold air swept through the room, extinguishing their flashlights. Darkness engulfed them. "Mark," Sarah's voice trembled. "What just happened?" "Stay close," Mark replied, trying to suppress his fear. But before he could take a step, a low growl emanated from the shadows. Panic surged through them as they realized they were not alone. Meanwhile, upstairs, Emily and Jake hurried out of the room, their hearts pounding. They could hear the echoes of Sarah and Mark's voices in the distance. "We should check on them," Jake said. But as they turned to head back, the hallway seemed to stretch endlessly before them, the shadows closing in. As they navigated the corridor, the growling intensified, reverberating through the walls. They raced toward the staircase, fear pushing them forward. But when they reached the bottom, they found themselves in an unfamiliar room, the air thick with tension. "Where are we?" Emily gasped, confusion etched on her face. "We have to find Mark and Sarah," Jake insisted. They called out for their friends, but the only response was the oppressive silence of the house. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the room they had just left, followed by a deafening silence. The friends exchanged horrified glances before racing back up the stairs. They reached the top just as a figure emerged from the shadow. Sarah, her eyes wide with terror. "Where's Mark?" Jake demanded. He's gone," she cried, shaking with fear. There was something in the room. It grabbed him. Emily's heart sank. "We have to go back and help him." "No, it's too dangerous," Sarah screamed, but the resolve in Jake's eyes was unyielding. With a deep breath, they turned back toward the room, determination mingling with terror. They entered cautiously, the air heavy with a suffocating silence. As they scanned the room, they caught sight of the chest, now eerily closed. "Mark," Emily shouted, but there was no reply. Just then the shadows coalesced, forming into a dark figure that loomed over them. It was a grotesque apparition, twisted and malformed, its eyes burning with malice. "Leave this place," it hissed, voice dripping with rage. "Where is Mark?" Jake demanded, his voice steady despite his fear. "Your friend is part of the house now," the creature snarled, its form shifting like smoke. "He belongs to me." Emily and Sarah backed away, but Jake stood his ground. "No, we won't let you take him." With a surge of adrenaline, he lunged forward, reaching for the chest. "If Mark's in there, I'll free him," he shouted. As he touched the lid, a blinding light erupted, and the creature let out an anguished howl. "Fool, you don't know what you're doing." In that moment, a torrent of memories flooded Jake's mind, visions of the house, of those who had come before, and of Mark's laughter. He could feel Mark's presence, faint but alive, trapped within the walls of the house. With newfound resolve, Jake slammed the chest open, and the light grew brighter, engulfing the room. The dark figure writhed in agony, its form beginning to disintegrate. "No, you will pay for this," it shrieked as the light consumed it. Suddenly, Marky emerged from the light, disoriented but alive. "Jake, what happened? Let's get out of here," Sarah cried, grabbing Mark's arm. They turned to leave, but the house shook violently, the walls cracking as if the very foundation was unraveling. In a desperate dash, they raced through the halls, the oppressive darkness closing in. Just as they reached the front door, a final surge of energy erupted, and the house collapsed around them. The dark figures were echoing in the night. They stumbled outside, breathless and shaken, the moonlight illuminating their faces. But as they looked back, the house stood eerily intact, a malevolent glint in its windows. "We made it," Mark exclaimed, relief flooding his voice. But as they turned to celebrate, Jake froze, his eyes wide with horror. "Guys, where's Sarah?" Panic washed over them as they realized she was gone. In their frantic escape, she had vanished without a trace. "She was right behind us," Mark shouted, searching the darkness, but the night was silent. Despair gripped them as they turned back toward the house, where shadows danced mockingly at the windows. The realization hit them like a punch. Sarah had been taken, a new victim of the cursed dwelling. As they stood there, the whispers began to rise, echoing through the stillness. "Help us! Help us!" But this time the voices were different, more familiar. It was Sarah's voice, haunting and desperate. "Come back for me, please." Jake and Mark exchanged horrified glances. Knowing they could never truly escape the darkness, that had ensnared them. The house had claimed another, and they could already feel its pull, drawing them back into its cold embrace. In the end, they realized that the house didn't just take lives, it fed on the fear and despair of those who dared to confront it. As the shadows swirled around them, they understood that they would never be free, bound to the curse of the last house on Maple Street.